Yes, Mr. Rowett.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, may I now call Oluwasuen Talabi?
Yes, thank you.
I swear by Almighty God
I swear by Almighty God
that the evidence I shall give
that the evidence I shall give
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
Thank you very much, Mr. Talabi. Sit down, make yourself comfortable. Before we start, can I say that I know you were asked to be here to start at 2 o'clock, and I'm sure you were here on time, and I'm sorry we've kept you waiting, but we overran a bit this morning, and so we're running a little bit behind.
That's all right, sir.
All right. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Rowett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you give the inquiry your full name, please?
My name is Oluwasuen Talabi.
Thank you. Mr. Talabi, first thing to say to you is thank you very much for coming to give evidence to us today. My questions today are going to focus on the night of the fire, and everyone here will know that that is difficult. So if at any time you need a break, please just tell me and we'll stop. What I'm going to try and do, I hope, is keep my questions short and simple. But if I do ask you a question that you don't understand, then please don't hesitate to stop me and tell me, and I'll put the question in a different way.
That's fine.
Thank you. The first thing we need to do is to put your statement to this inquiry formally into the record. So can we have, please, the first page of that statement, which is IWS 50851. Just so that we can orientate ourselves, Mr. Talabi, that's the first page of the statement that you've made for the inquiry. You'll see that I hope that it's come up on the screen that's on your desk. If you need a paper copy at any time, there'll be one in the bundle that's on the table in front of you. I just want to ask you, I think there may be a couple of corrections or clarifications we need to make to the statement. Could we go, please, to paragraph 43, which is on page 11. If we could expand paragraph 43, please. It begins at approximately the firefighters came to the door again. Now, there seems to be something missing between approximately and the firefighters. Can you help us with that at all?
I don't know if they were talking about the time, but yeah, I don't know.
So, can we clarify that statement? Say you don't know what time you were referring to there?
Yes, that's correct.
Well, can we then go to paragraph 54, which is on page 13. And can you see there that the typed version of the statement has missed some words? So the first sentence begins, the firefighters then came for thee. Do you know what should follow after that?
The last time.
So just for the record, this first sentence of paragraph 54 should read, the firefighters then came for the last time.
Yes.
Thank you.
Could we go to page 19 then, please? The statement we can see at the bottom is dated the 20th of May 2018, and we can see that it's signed. Is that your signature?
Yes, it is.
And have you had an opportunity to go through the statement recently?
Yes, I have.
Thank you. And subject to the clarification and the correction that you've made, are the contents of the statement true?
Yeah, to the best of my knowledge.
Mr. Chairman, for the record, there are no exhibits to accompany the statement.
Right, thank you.
Can I start, please, Mr. Talabi, with just a little bit of background, if I may? And I'll take you back to page 2 of your statement. And could we just expand paragraph 4 for us, please? You give a little bit of background there, and I won't read it out, but is it right that in June 2017 you were working as a logistics manager in the construction industry?
No, I wasn't in logistics at that time. I was working as a supervisor at a site in Stratford.
So a supervisor on a site in Stratford?
Yes.
And you had moved in with your partner Rosemary, who we heard from yesterday, hadn't you?
Yes.
And your daughter. And you moved in, you tell us, in around 2015.
Yeah, I've been stayed with her like a few times, but I moved in permanently at that time, yeah.
And that was to flat 113
Yeah,
on the
that's
14th
correct.
floor of Grenfell Tower, wasn't it?
That's correct.
Can we have the whole page, please? As I mentioned, we heard from Rosemary yesterday, and I mean no disrespect to you if I say that I'll try and take things shortly. My first question is you set out in your statement here, and it begins at paragraph 5, you discuss the neighbours who lived on the 14th floor.
Yes.
How well did you know your neighbours?
I knew Dennis Murphy as a guy that he was a polite guy that just lovely. That he was one of the first people I met on that floor. Very polite guy. Every time I would see him, he always be like, "How you doing, bruv?" He was yeah. That's the kind of relationship we had. We're not friends as such, but we had like a mutual respect for each other. Kind of, yeah.
And you also mentioned it, it's at the bottom, Zainab Dean and her son. How well did you know them?
I knew Zainab. Not too well. I knew Zainab. I put it this way: she was a lady that lived by herself with a child. So she had a little child. My son came into my flat once or twice because there's times where we've left the door open, and he came in. And I think Zainab actually liked him coming to our flat. But I wouldn't say like me and Zainab and us was very close. But there are occasions where we would have a chat, and yeah, our son has been in my house like twice.
And would you say, so would it a fair way of describing relations on the 14th floor was that you got on with your neighbours?
Yes.
And you knew some of them to say hello to and
Yes.
to have a chat with?
Yes.
Now we know the Alhaj Ali brothers lived in flat 112. Had you come across them?
Yeah. Everyone just used to like mind your business. Everyone was fine. Everyone just used to go to work, come back, and obviously if you meet your neighbours on the lift or in the corridor, you say hello to them, and yeah, that was our relationship. It wasn't like close or nothing. Yeah.
As a family, did you feel settled in flat 113?
Settled but not safe.
To pick up the last part of your answer, I want to ask you just a little bit about what you knew about fire safety in Grenfell Tower before the fire, right?
Yeah.
And what I want to do, and it's, Mr. Chairman, an image we've seen a number of times now.
Yes.
I just want to show you a fire notice. So we're just going to see the notice itself. Are you happy that we look at that, Mr.
Yeah.
Right. Can we have, please, BLA 402416, please? If I just explain to you, Mr. Talabi, what this image shows, it's a notice that was sighted between the lifts on the 3rd floor. So not your floor, but the lifts. But obviously you would have come back and forth to your home every day, wouldn't you?
Yes.
And did you, unless they weren't working, did you usually try and use the lifts to get up to your flat?
Sorry, say that again.
If the lifts were working, was that the usual way you
If the lifts
would
were
get
working,
to-
we used the lift. If the lift wasn't working, which happened quite a few times, where both lifts wasn't working, then yeah, we'll have to take the stairs, yeah.
Do you remember seeing a notice like that between the lifts on the ground floor?
Yeah, probably on the ground floor, but nowhere else.
So you say nowhere else. Does that mean that you can't remember seeing a notice like that on your floor?
Definitely not.
If you look at the top line, it says there's a stay put policy for residents unless the fire is in or affecting your flat. Did the phrase stay put mean anything to you before June 2017?
No. I don't think it makes any sense for you to stay in a burning building. If there's a way for you to get out, you get out. You don't stay in a building because someone has told you to stay or some sign has told you to stay. You get out of a burning building if you can get out of a burning building. And that's what I would do if I could get out of the building.
And you say that your view was if there was a fire, it was to get out.
Yes.
Did you have fire drills at work, for example?
I don't think so.
So what was it that influenced your view that if there was a fire, then the best thing to do was to get out?
If you live in a tower block, there's no way you can live in a tower block, especially when it's got one stairway and you've got gas pipes running through the emergency exit. There's no way you're not going to think about a fire happening and you trying to get out at some point. Only if you, I don't know, but yeah, that used to come to my mind sometimes.
Mr. Chairman, I wonder if we could just take a break at this moment, please.
Yes?
Just for 5 minutes.
Right. Well, Mr. Talabi, we're going to find we have breaks from time to time for all sorts of different reasons. Council would like a 5-minute break now, so I think we'll do as he asks, and we'll break until 2:55 to 3. I have to ask you not to talk to anyone about your evidence while you're out of the room. All right? So
Yes,
if you'd
sir.
like to go with the usher, she'll look after you.
Thank you, sir.
All right? 2:55 to 3. Uh, 25 to 3 then, please. All right, Mr. Rabbit, are you ready to go on?
We are, thank you.
Right, thank you. All right, Mr. Talabi, you ready to carry on?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Yes, Mr. Rabbit.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Talabi, can I just ask you a question about a different topic, if I may?
Yeah, that's fine.
And it's how the front door to your flat worked. Can we just look at your statement, just what you remembered about the front door? If we go to IWS 8515, please. Just look at paragraph 18. Thank you. I'll just read out the first part of it. The front door to our flat was replaced. It was quite tight to the frame and the door closed properly. I can't remember whether we had an automatic door closer or whether there was any form of draft seal or draft excluder. I do know that when the fire happened, there wasn't any smoke in our flat until after we had opened the door. Our door had a letterbox on it that sprang shut almost violently. And then you finish, I've never had any problem with the door itself. But can you just help us with this? Was your door the type that you couldn't lock yourself out of?
Yes, it was.
So can you just explain to me just how it worked then?
You can only lock yourself. You can only lock it from the outside or inside. If you don't lock it from the inside or lock it from the outside, then you can just open it either from outside or inside.
So you'd actually have to turn the lock to shut the door
Yes.
fully.
Yes.
And so if the door was shut but hadn't been locked,
Yeah.
could someone come into the flat?
Yeah, only if you open it.
And what kind of handle was there on the door?
I think it was a gold handle. It wasn't like a long one. It was just like a circle kind of thing, and you can just.
So like a doorknob rather than a
It
handle?
wasn't like circle, but kind of. I don't know how to describe it, but yeah.
And so if I'm standing outside that door and I just turn that handle and push,
Yeah.
and the lock isn't engaged,
Yeah.
would that allow me to come into your flat?
Yes, it would.
Could I please have page 9 of the statement, please, and can we look at paragraphs 35 and 36? Mr. Talabi, we're going to take this in stages, if I may, but what I want to do is just start asking you a few questions about the night of the fire.
That's fine.
It may help if I tell you just the approach that I'm going to adopt is not to ask you about every detail that you've put in your statement, but just to pick out some issues on which I'd ask for some further information, if that's possible.
That's fine.
And just to give us some context, what you say in the first paragraph is that you got home that night at about 6 or 7 p.m.
Yeah.
And you describe it as a very ordinary and normal evening.
Yes.
And we were all in bed, you say, before midnight.
Yes.
You finish that paragraph by saying that it was a summer's evening, so we had our bedroom door windows open and other windows open to let some air into the flat.
Yeah.
So we know we've seen the layout of your flat that you had 2 bedrooms, didn't you?
Yes.
So aside from those bedroom windows, can you remember which windows you left open that night?
Definitely the kitchen window, because obviously it's the summer and if you're going to cook, it's the kitchen, you're going to need the windows open constantly. So, yeah. And maybe 1 or 2 of the windows in the front room, but I'm not sure.
Thank you. If we pick it up at paragraph 36, what you say there is that it was approximately 1:30 a.m. when you first knew that something had gone awry, and what you heard at that time was noise and shouting. What do you base the timing of 1:30 a.m. on?
The reason was I had work the next day, so obviously if I've been waking up by noise outside, I just wanted to check to see how much time I got left to sleep before I wake up again for work the next day. But yeah, it didn't go to plan that way.
And did you check that by looking at your phone or something like that?
I did just before I tried to go back to sleep. Yeah.
If we go over to the next page, please, and just let's expand from the top down to the end of paragraph 38. You say, and I'm just going to just draw your attention to part of it, no signs of smoke or fire inside our flat. From the hubbub of voices on what I think was the walkway, I could just about make out someone shouting, "Fire, fire." It was seconds between waking up and realising that there was a fire downstairs. And then if we look at paragraph 38, you say the first place I saw any evidence of the fire was on the outside of our flat. And you describe going into the kitchen and looking out of the window. I just want to ask for a little bit more help on this, please, and hopefully we can try and help you by showing you a plan. Could we have MET 000125993, please, and page 12 of that document? If we could expand flat 3 at the bottom. And you may already be aware of this, Mr. Talabi, but this is a layout of the 4th floor.
Yeah.
But it matches what the layout would be as you would have moved up the tower. So on your floor, that's the approximate layout of your flat. Your partner, Rosemary Oyewole, explained that one thing we should note is that there was, between the kitchen and the lounge, there would have been a sliding door, wouldn't there?
Yes, there was.
But what we can see, if you look at the on the left-hand side of the image, can you see blue lines?
Yeah.
And those, as I understand it, designate the windows. So we've got one window at the kitchen.
Yeah.
Was that the window that you first went to?
Yes, it was.
And can you just tell us what you could see when you went to that window?
So after hearing all the noises coming out from outside, so I decided to investigate if I could see any fire around the building. So I went straight in the kitchen. And when I went to the kitchen, from the concrete column, this bit here separating us from, I could see smoke coming, shooting up from the concrete column, going up. Obviously, I couldn't see, the concrete column was kind of blocking, so I couldn't see to my right itself, but I could see fire coming up from, not fire, but smoke, thick smoke coming up from there.
Thank you. Can I break that down and take it in stages? So you've told us your kitchen window was open.
Yes.
And so you leant out of the window, is that right?
No, I didn't put my head out or nothing. I didn't have to put my head out.
Right.
Basically, I looked out. It wasn't close to but you can see the smoke coming out, so probably from someone else's flat that was burning or something else. So, yeah, but it wasn't as close, but I could see it, so I knew there was fire on that side.
And you associated the smoke with the column.
Yeah.
And you say that it wasn't close, but was the smoke below you?
I could see smoke. I don't know if it was below, coming from above, but I could see smoke. And I remember not saying nothing to Rosemary, so she doesn't start panicking.
Was any of that smoke coming into your kitchen?
Not at that point.
Can we look, please, at paragraph 39 on back in your statement, page 10 of IWS 851, please. Expand paragraph 39, please. Thank you. Now, what you say there is that the next thing that you did was to go to the front door of your flat. Now, before you got to the front door, as you were approaching it, were you aware of any smoke coming into the flat through that closed front door?
No, there wasn't any smoke at that point.
And what lights did you have on in your flat at that time?
The corridor light for sure. Our bedroom light. I wasn't sure about my daughter's room, but yeah. And the front room light wasn't on because we wouldn't leave the light on if we're going to bed, so I'm thinking the light was switched off in the front room.
But what you set out in the paragraph is what you encountered when you opened the front door, and you say it was like being punched in the face with thick black smoke. It was akin to opening a hot oven. This wall of heat and smoke hit you. Can you tell us anything about what the smoke smelt like?
I can't describe it because it's not something I've smelt before, and I don't think anyone here would have smelt it before, so it's not something I can describe to you. You're going to have to feel it for yourself to understand it.
Did it have any effect on you?
Not at that point.
Do you remember where Rosemary was at this time?
I think getting kids are ready for us to. I don't know. Well, is it before I opened the door? No, Rosemary and I opened the door together, so the statement is not. But yeah, all three of us, because I woke up, I told her to get ready. She got Keza to wear to get dressed, and all three of us tried to go out together, and we were hit with the smoke, so we had to come back in.
So if we take that paragraph 39, your recollection is that that time that you opened the door here, you'd already made a decision to leave the flat.
Yeah, that was the first thing we did when I woke Rosemary up, because our plan was to leave the building.
And is it your memory that Rosemary would have been with you by the front door?
Yes.
And your daughter was with you?
Yes.
Did you say that I closed the door as soon as we had opened it? Did you step out into the communal hallway at all?
I'm not sure if I did. Or maybe I put like my head out, or we tried to escape and we saw that it was just too dark and the smoke was just different. It wasn't like a smoke from like cooking. It was just like there was something serious happening that you can't take that risk of trying to step in there. So we shut the door. I shut the door. Yeah.
Can you remember how many times you opened the door?
Me personally, I opened the door probably once, but the door was opened quite a few times that night.
And we'll come back to that, if I may, in due course. Again, I hope my questions are just about getting a bit more detail from you, but when you opened the door on this occasion that we see in this paragraph, can you describe what your visibility was like in the communal hallway?
To be fair, I don't know. I couldn't see nothing. I don't even know if the light was switched on. I don't know if the smoke was just so thick and we couldn't see the light, but it was pitch black when we opened the door.
Well, let's just take you now to another couple of paragraphs in your statement, which is on the same page. Can we look at paragraphs 41 and 42, please? What you tell us in paragraph 41 was that Rosemary began to put blankets around the door to prevent the smoke coming in, and you were throwing water on the blankets. Did those efforts work? Did they stop smoke coming into your flat?
Yes, it did. Yeah, it did. A bit, yeah, it worked. Yeah, because she kept on doing it for a long time, actually. So yeah, it helped a bit. Yeah.
And what you say, if we pick now up paragraph 42, 10 to 15 minutes after we'd woken up and discovered there was a fire, 2 firefighters knocked on the door, and you say you opened the door and let in 2 firefighters who'd banged on the door. And by doing that, more smoke came into the flat. Can you describe the firefighters at all?
No, I don't know what they look like. I can't describe them.
Were they big or small?
I wasn't thinking. I was just thinking about getting out of the fire.
Do you remember if they were wearing masks?
I think they were.
Do you remember them ever taking the masks off?
Can't remember. Sorry.
I'll take you back to the plan if you want to see it, and tell me if you do. But do you remember how far these firefighters came into your flat?
I think they actually came into the room, because I remember Rosemary telling one of them not to stay in our wall. And I said to her, that's the list of our problem right now, because I don't think she knew what she was in.
And when you say they came into the room, which room do you have in mind?
Our bedroom.
Let's go to the plan, please. MET 00015. Oops, forgotten. 12593, please. And page 12. Thank you. Again, can we expand flat 3 down in the southwest corner? You've got 2 bedrooms, and is it right that the bedroom that's closest to the lounge was your daughter's bedroom?
That's correct.
And so the next bedroom, and that's the bedroom that faces the front door, was yours and Rosemary's bedroom?
That's correct.
And is it your recollection that these firefighters actually came into the bedroom?
Yes.
When they were in your flat, did they ask how many people were in the flat?
I'm not sure, but maybe they did, but I'm not sure.
Before we leave this plan, we know that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that there was a double bed in the bedroom that was used by yourself and Rosemary. Is that right?
No, it's a king-size bed.
A king-size bed. What furniture did you have in your daughter's bedroom?
A double bed, a bunk bed.
A bunk bed?
Yes.
Can we go back to your statement again, please? IWS 851, page 11 now. And could we expand, please, paragraphs 43 and 44? So when the firefighters first came into your flat, can you remember whether it was yourself or Rosemary that let them in?
I can't remember, sir.
And they then left, and presumably the door was shut after them, is that right?
Yes, it was.
So if we pick it up at paragraph 43, you say that they came to the door again. You're not sure if they were the same 2 that had come previously, and they knocked on the door and we let them in. Can you help us with who let these 2 firefighters in this time?
Like I said, I can't remember. We'll let who in. It could have been me or Rosemary. One of us let them in.
Were you still at that time around the front door throwing water onto the blankets and things like that?
I think so.
So this is the second visit by firefighters to your flat, isn't it?
Not sure.
But can you tell us, what you've told us is that you've had one visit where 2 firefighters come and they come into your bedroom.
Yeah.
And then this is now firefighters coming back to the door again. Can you help us at all with how much time passed between those 2 visits?
No, I don't want to say something I'm not sure about.
That's fair enough. If we look at what the firefighters told you, you write that the 2 firefighters that came in told us that our flat was either the least damaged or the least at risk of damage in the fire on the 14th floor. And they asked you if they could bring people into your flat. Do you see that?
Yes.
Did they tell you anything of what was going on in the other flats on your floor?
No, they didn't. They just said to us, is it all right if they bring our neighbours, because our flat seemed to be the safest place as of that time. So obviously that doesn't sound very good. And yeah, they asked us if they could bring our neighbours, and we said yes, they could.
And then what we see is that they, if we look at paragraph 44, you say it can't be more than a couple of minutes after the firefighters came for the second time, when they came again with the people from our floor into our flat. So they brought in Dennis Murphy, Zainab and her son, and then the brothers Omar and Muhammad. Do you remember if they all came together in one group, or did they come in batches?
I think they came together.
And when they came, did firefighters come into the flat with with them?
Maybe, I'm not sure.
Now, I think in your statement what you explain is that each time the front door opened, smoke would come in from the communal area through that door, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Other than those occasions,
Yeah.
by the time that your neighbours arrived in your flat,
Yeah.
had you been successful in stopping smoke from coming through the front door?
There was smoke coming in, but just it wasn't like very smoky, but yeah, there was smoke coming in, so there was still a bit of smoke in the house. It wasn't like you couldn't see nothing, or yeah, but there was smoke.
And whereabouts in your flat did you see that smoke?
More of the corridor, but it wasn't like thick or nothing. But, yeah.
Could we look at paragraph 45, please? I just want to pick up the last sentence of that paragraph, please, Mr. Talabi. You say, we were all sat in the bedroom. Dennis, Zainab and one of the brothers was sat on the bed. Which bedroom are you referring to there?
Our bedroom.
So what's your recollection of where your neighbours went in your flat when they arrived?
Omar and his brother kind of walked around. I think they were trying to inspect, I don't know, but they walked around. I can't remember where Zainab was and Jeremiah, but I can remember Dennis Matthew was in the front room.
But did there come a time when you all ended up in your bedroom?
I don't know the reasons why we all ended up in the bedroom, but Dennis Murphy was in the front room. I know that for a fact because Rosemary grabbed him to wash his face and give him water. So yeah, I remember that clearly. So
you remember Dennis being in the front room?
Yes.
And Rosemary helping him to wash his face, is that
Yes.
right? What you've said, if we look at that sentence, is you've said that we were all sat in the bedroom, and you mentioned Dennis specifically.
Yeah.
Do you remember Dennis being brought into the bedroom?
I don't know how he got in there. I don't know how he got in there, but yeah, he didn't spend very long in the front room because all of us was in the bedroom after a while.
And do you remember, can you tell us why you all ended up in the bedroom?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
You told us that earlier you'd gone to your kitchen window and looked out and seen smoke.
Yeah.
From either your lounge windows or your kitchen windows, had you gone back to look out of those windows at all?
Yes, I did go back to the kitchen, and now I could see like a bit more kind of light coming. Not, I could see a bit more. It was getting a bit bigger. And that's one of the things that prompted me to start doing what I was doing.
That's something I'm going to ask you next, if I may. But just before we leave that trip to the kitchen window, you say you could see more light. Did you have a sense of how close that was to you?
No, but obviously, if I saw smoke before and now I can see fire, that means it's getting a bit closer. So yeah.
And when you say you could now see fire, was it flames that you could see?
Yes.
And were they again, was it towards your right as you look out of the kitchen window?
The same area, yeah.
Do you remember Zainab using her phone while she was in flat 113?
Yes.
Do you remember who she was calling?
Now I know, but I didn't know she was talking to at that point. But now I know who she was talking to.
So that was something that at the time you didn't hear who she was speaking to?
I saw Zainab that night before the fire started, and she was a man, and yeah, that's the person she was speaking to.
So she was speaking to a friend of hers.
Yes.
Would you recall Dennis being on the phone at all?
I saw him with a phone, but I can't remember if he was actually using the phone. But I saw him with a phone, but I don't remember him actually using it.
Let's just remind yourself of that last sentence that you say we were all sat in the bedroom, Dennis, Zainab, and one of the brothers was sat on the bed. And let's go to MET 000125593 again, please, on page 12. Again, expand flat 3. I think and the bedroom you have in mind is the bedroom that was for you and Rosemary, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Rosemary told us yesterday that if you see the wall that separates the two bedrooms, she told us that your king size bed came out from that wall into the middle of the room. Is that your recollection?
Yeah, that's correct.
So there would have been a space on either side of the bed, wouldn't there?
That's correct.
Are you able to? You can see the door of the bedroom that leads out into the hallway. Can you tell us where Dennis was sat on the bed?
Somewhere along this line of the bed.
So he was sat on the side of the bed closest to the bedroom door?
Yes, that's correct.
So I think we didn't hear your answer.
So, yeah, that's correct.
And what about Zainab? Where was she?
Zainab was panicking throughout the whole thing, so she wasn't sitting down, or she was. My image I can see of Zainab right now is her standing.
So on the wall that's closest to the next door flat.
Foot of the bed, yeah.
And at the foot of the bed.
Yeah.
And we were also told yesterday. Rosemary remembered Zainab's son being put on the bed. Do you remember that as well?
Yes, it was next to my daughter.
And do you remember where the Omar and Muhammad were?
Omar and Mohammed were walking around the whole place. I think, obviously, if there's a fire, they're trying to see how to get out and trying to see where the fire might be. So they wasn't really settled in one place. It was just towards the end when everyone congregated in the room then, yeah. But Omar and was walking about the place.
So what your recollection is that towards the end they came into the bedroom?
All of us was in the bedroom.
And whereabouts, you mentioned in your statement that one of the brothers was sat on the bed. But whereabouts was that? Which side?
I remember Mohammed sitting on the bed towards the window, and I remember him reading his Quran.
Thank you. Could we please go to page 12 of your statement, and let's look at paragraph 46. You say in that paragraph that when the firefighters left after dropping our neighbours off to our flat, they told us that they would be back. At that time when they told you that, did the firefighters explain why you could not leave with them?
No, they didn't.
Did they give you any advice about what you should do until they did come back?
No, they didn't.
If we look on the same page, please, at paragraphs 47 and 48, please. This is the part of your statement, Mr. Talabi, where you explain that about making the makeshift rope. I don't have to go into the detail of it because it's already there in the statement, but can I just ask you just again for some additional details, if I may? What you set out in your statement is that you made a rope from bed linen and then you tied it around the metal window surround. Can you remember which window you were tying it around?
Yes, I can.
Which window was it?
The window in the bedroom.
And that's the window in the bedroom, in your bedroom?
Yes.
And when you were doing this, can you remember who was in the room with you?
Everyone.
And did you tell everyone what you were planning to do?
Everyone could see what I was doing.
What did they say to you?
I shouldn't.
And just so that we can understand, I think you've explained how you created the rope. After you'd hung it out of the window, how far down did it reach?
I think maybe about the 4th floor, 3rd floor, something like that.
You explained that you lowered yourself out of the window, but the problem was that your daughter didn't want to come with you, so she didn't want to be passed to you. Is that right?
That's correct.
And when you realised that your daughter wouldn't come out with you, how did you get back into the flat?
So I was struggling to get back into the flat, and Omar, his brother, pulled me back in.
Would you like to have a break at this moment?
No, just carry on, please.
Oh, thank you. And when you climbed back in, what did you do with your rope?
I left it, it was going to go back again.
You told us that this was your bedroom window. At the time that you were making these efforts, what could you see from the window?
I could see fire brigades down there, but they didn't look like they were going to come help us.
And what were the conditions like in your flat at this time?
It was just a bit of smoke.
And was that still smoke coming through the front door?
Yes, but, yeah.
Could you, at that time, were there lights on in the bedroom?
Yes, there was.
And what about the lighting in the hallway?
Ours?
Yes.
Yes, I think.
Could I take you just now to the next page in your statement, which is page 13? And can we look, please, at paragraphs 50 to 53? Can I just go back to the rope that you put together? Where did you get the bed sheets from?
I took it from everywhere in the house. I took it from Keziah's room, my daughter's room. I took it from like a little storage thing where we kept all our bed sheets and everything. I took it from there. I took it from our bedroom. I just tied everything that we had in the house, even the pillowcases and everything. So
did you have to take the sheets off your own bed as well?
I can't remember if I took that one out, but yeah.
So do you remember your neighbours having to move off the bed whilst you were doing that?
No, I started doing that before they came in the house.
If we look, please, at paragraphs 50 and 51 in particular, what you say is that you made one attempt to get out of the window, and you say about 10 or 15 minutes after the first attempt, I decided to make another attempt. And how confident are you about the time period between your two attempts to come out of the window?
It's an estimate.
And you explain that you took some Nigerian cloth that you had in the flat and you tied your daughter onto your back.
Yeah, with the help of Rosemary, yeah.
How tightly bound to you was your daughter?
She was very tight.
And was she covered completely by the cloth?
No, our hands were hanging out, our legs were hanging out, and our head was hanging out. It's just... yeah.
So it was almost like you were giving her a piggyback, but with a tight cloth around her.
Yeah.
And when you made this second attempt, was it from the same window?
We didn't make a second attempt. Because
were you? That's a fair response. But can I ask it in this way? Were you going to go out from the same window?
Yes, because we didn't think no one was coming to get us.
So that was just to be clear, was that the bedroom window?
Yes, it was.
And as you rightly pointed out, you say at paragraph 51, just as I was beginning to climb out of the window, the firefighters knocked on the door for the third time. So if we take this in stages, where were you when you heard that knock on the door?
I think we had just tied my daughter to my back, and Rosemary had taken this decision because obviously I think she must have popped her head out as well, and she must have seen the fire coming from the top, because she didn't want to do it in the first place, but obviously she decided that that's the only option we had. So she had tied my daughter to my back, and I was explaining the way we're going to get back, climb the thing down, and yeah, so we're about to do it again before we hear the door open.
And was the bedroom door open or closed when you heard this knock?
To my recollection, it was open.
So from the bedroom you could see through to the front door?
Yes, you can.
What were the conditions like in your hallway at that time?
Smoky, but I could still see.
So from where you were you by the window? Was that where you were?
I'll say maybe not very close to the window, but just about probably where Zainab was standing before, about that, yeah. But I said Zainab was standing, yeah, somewhere like that, yeah.
And so again, what was the visibility like in the hallway?
To be fair, because we had spent quite a lot of time in the room, and I didn't go back through that way, so I don't know what was happening in the kitchen anymore. I don't know what was happening in the front room, and I don't know what was happening in the corridor. We're just preparing to go out through the window, and yeah.
And then you heard the knock on the door?
I don't know if it was a knock, I don't know if they barged in, I don't know what it was, but yeah.
Do you remember whether the lights were on in the hallway? Yes.
We left it on, but I don't know, yeah.
At this time, when you hear this knock on the door, can you remember where everybody else was?
In the bedroom.
So let's go to MET 333 12593 again, please. Page 12. And again, if we could expand flat 3. And again, if I could just take it in stages, please, Mr. Talabi. But the bedroom we're speaking of is the one that's closest to the next door flat, and that's yours and Rosemary's, isn't it?
That's correct.
So your recollection is that the bedroom door was open?
Yes.
And everyone was in the bedroom?
Yeah, I'd like to think everyone's... I don't know, because I know Zainab was in the bedroom. Hassan was in the bedroom. Dennis was in the bedroom. I don't know if Omar and his brother had walked around, but I know them 3-4 sure was in the bedroom.
So at the time that the knock happens on that door,
yeah,
what's clear in your mind is that you were in the bedroom?
Yes. Was
Rosemary with you?
Yes.
And your daughter was strapped to your back?
Yes.
So whereabouts were you and Rosemary then, in the bedroom?
Like I said earlier, about where Zainab... Sorry. Somewhere around here.
So towards the foot of the bed?
Yes.
Where was Dennis?
Same position. He was...
Was he still sat on the bed?
Yes.
And on the side of the bed closest to the door?
Yes.
Do you think he was sat closest to the top of the bed, or to the middle of it, or to the bottom?
If you open the door, you would see Dennis.
And what about Zainab?
I don't know, but you'll see Dennis and you'll see Jeremiah.
Because he was on the bed?
Yes.
Can we go, please, to your statement, page 13 again? And pick up, please, paragraph 54, if we can have that. This is the paragraph that you corrected for us, Mr. Talabi. So the first sentence should read, "The firefighters then came for the last time." Can you remember how many firefighters came?
I know it was more than one, but the person that said go, or whatever word he said, was one person. I think the other firefighter must have been standing outside of the door.
So the person that you recall one person saying go,
Yeah,
is that right?
that's correct.
And where was that person in relation to the front door?
It's probably got 1 foot inside and 1 foot outside. I'll say something like that.
And do you have a clear recollection then of this firefighter at your front door?
Sorry? Say that
Do you
again?
have a clear memory of a firefighter at your front door?
Yes.
Do you know how do you remember if anyone opened the door to the firefighter?
No, I don't.
Did you open the door?
No, I
at all?
didn't.
What about Rosemary?
No, I don't think so.
What could you see of the communal hall area behind this firefighter?
Nothing.
Were you aware of smoke coming in?
Yeah, obviously, if you open the door and the place is smoky, then the smoke's going to come through.
What you say is that what you heard was go. Did you say anything to the firefighter?
No,
Did you hear anyone else speak to the firefighters?
no.
And you explained that if we look at that last couple of sentences in that paragraph, it definitely seemed like an option, but to Rosemary and me, it was a matter of choices. Go through the window, make a run for it down the stairs, or die in the flat. So I grabbed Rosemary by the hand, and and that's just your daughter on my back, we ran. Just before you... I'll take a step back. When the firefighter came in through the front door, did the visibility in your hallway change?
It was quick, so I don't know if it did. What about the last time, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know, because it was quick.
Do you have a recollection of the front door being open?
Yes.
And do you have a recollection of smoke coming in through the open front door?
I don't know.
Did you, before you left the flat, or when you left the flat, was your daughter still strapped to your back?
Yes, she was.
And do you remember, you say that you and Rosemary held each other's hands and you ran. Were any of your neighbours ahead of you?
I don't know.
And doing the best you can, just before you left the flat, where was everybody else?
Like I said, in the bedroom. I don't know if Omar and his brother had moved, but I know Jeremiah was on the bed. Dennis was just quiet for the whole night. He didn't really go anywhere, so I know Dennis was in a room and Rosemary was in a room. But I don't know. I'm not sure about Omar and his brother because they were very active.
Can we go to page 14, please, and look at paragraph 56? This is part of your statement where you, actually, if we could look at 57, sorry. This is the part of your statement where you describe what you encountered when you left the flat, and you described the thick smoke hit me. I couldn't see anything at all, not even my feet or a hand in front of my face. Were you aware of firefighters in the communal area?
Yes.
What was it that told you they were there?
Like I said earlier, one of them had his leg in and one leg out, and he had one person behind him. So I'm not sure how many there was, but I know that person had someone with them.
Do you have a recollection of being helped out of the flat or pushed along?
Nobody touched us. No one helped us out.
And your recollection is that you had to push the stairwell door open, is that right?
I think Rosemary did.
And when you got into the stairwell, what were the conditions like there?
It felt like I was being strangled. It was really hard. I felt like I was being strangled. My daughter was behind me, and she was making all sort of noises, and it was just painful to hear. I felt like I was putting I don't know, you feel like you're putting your daughter through, like, obviously it's not your fault, you're trying to save her, but that's the worst thing you can put your daughter through, but yeah, so yeah.
You've set out in your statement how you came down the stairwell and then came out through the main entrance, and you've also described the smoke that was coming into your flat, what you encountered on the communal hallway and then in the stairs. When you came out outside of the tower, what physical effect did that smoke have on you?
I was disorientated. I was coughing, like thick black stuff. My nose was running. My daughter, the same thing. So was Rosemary. Like, we're in a bad state.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just have a moment, please.
Yes, of course.
Before you left the flat, did you hear any of your neighbours say anything to the firefighter?
No.
And more specifically, did you hear Omar say anything to the firefighter?
I didn't say nothing to nobody.
Did you hear, apart from the word go, did you hear any firefighter say anything to someone in the flat?
No.
Mr. Chairman, those are my questions. May I ask for the usual 5-minute break just to check if there are any other supplemental questions I ought to have asked?
Yes, of course. Well, Mr. Talabi, at this point, counsel thinks he's asked all his questions, but sometimes it turns out that there are further questions that he should have put to you. So we're going to have a 5-minute break now so he can take stock. And we'll come back at 3:30 to see if there are any more questions. And
Thank
I
you,
have to
sir.
ask you not to talk about your evidence while you're out of the room, if you don't mind.
Thank you.
All right? I'd like to go with the usher. She'll look after you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, 3:30 then, please. Would you like me to go out again for a spell? You all
Chair,
right?
I think it's just be done within 2 minutes. If I
All
may.
right. Yes. Come on, Mr. Talabi, you come and sit down. Let them do their talking.
Thank you, Chair.
All right. Well, now, Mr. Rabbit, I take it you've got some more questions.
It does seem I have some more work to do, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Well, Mr. Talabi, I think only a few more questions. I'm hoping so anyway. See how we
Yes. Mr. Talabi, there are a number of questions I've been asked to put to you, and it may mean that we jump around a little bit. So just so that you can get orientate yourself, let me take you back to page 13 of your statement. So IWS 85113, please, and let's look again at paragraph 54. So this is the paragraph where you deal with the arrival of the firefighters in your home for the last time. Okay. Now, I think you told us, and tell me if I've got this wrong, that you were in the bedroom at that time. And your recollection is of a firefighter at the front door
Yes.
with 1 foot in the flat and 1 foot out.
Yeah, it wasn't. I don't think he was in the flat. It wasn't in the flat. It was in between the door and yeah.
So would it be would a fair way of describing say that there was a firefighter on the edge of your front door?
Yes.
Whilst you were still in the flat and before you left it, was there any point, as far as you can remember, where a firefighter went beyond that front door and further into your flat?
No.
And just again, so we can be clear, did you ever see a firefighter walk past your bedroom door further into the flat at that time?
No. The firefighter basically stood there and said, "Go," meaning take your chance and just go. I didn't see him go past, but he was still standing there when we left.
So he was in the same position?
Yes.
And how sure are you in your mind that before you left that flat, no firefighter had gone beyond the front door?
Positive. No.
What you say is, you know, there's this recollection of the firefighter saying, go. When you were told to leave, do you remember what the noise level was like in the flat?
In our flat,
Yes.
when obviously we were shouting and screaming for help before the fire brigade came, but apart from that, we wasn't really shouting because there was no point in making. Everyone was just scared. You can just feel everyone being scared, but people were not shouting.
At the time that the firefighters arrived and you heard the instruction go,
Yeah.
what kind of noise was there in the flat?
What do you mean?
Do you remember anybody else talking or shouting at the time when the firefighters arrived?
People were not shouting. Obviously, the firefighter came and we thought they were coming to rescue us. So I don't think anyone will be shouting at that point if you've seen anyone that's coming to rescue you.
The last time you were in your lounge, and I recognise that what we're talking about now, you've told us you were in the bedroom, but going back to the last time you were in the lounge, were the lights in the lounge still working?
All the lights in the house, in my house, was working.
And do you have a clear memory of the lights in the lounge being on?
Yes.
And we know, and we from your statement and from the plan.
Sorry, can I just say?
Yes.
I spent a lot of time in the bedroom. We spent a lot of time in the bedroom. Like I said earlier, I don't know what was happening in the corridor. I wasn't focusing on what was happening in the corridor. The light might have been switched on, switched off. I do not know.
That's fair enough, thank you. Can you just, was there a door into the lounge?
What do you mean?
Well, did you have a lounge door? If I were coming along your hallway to get into the lounge, would there be a door there?
Yes.
And can you describe that door?
Well, it's a wooden door with glass in it.
And where was the glass in the door?
It was just everywhere, I think.
So it had glass panels from top to bottom?
I think so.
Can I take you back, please, and it'll be for the last time, to MET 000012593, page 12 again. And again, if we could expand flat 3. If we take each room in turn, if we may, but if you were in the bedroom that was yours and Rosemary's, and you were looking out of that window, would you be able from that bedroom to see the walkway that's attached to the tower?
Yes, you will.
And what about from your daughter's bedroom?
If you stretch your... I haven't tried it before because she had a bunk bed, but we just used to open. I've never tried to put my head out to see, so I don't know.
So
but probably.
Is it from your bedroom that you'd get the best view of the walkway?
Yes.
And if, again, just for completeness, if we were moving along and we moved to the lounge, would it be the case that if you were using the lounge windows that's on the south there, would you have to stretch out to try and see the walkway from there?
The walkway is a long stretch. Depends on what part of the walkway you're trying to see. If you're trying to see where our entrance is, then it'll be hard. If you're trying to look towards Latimer Road, then yeah, you can. But if you're trying to look towards where our entrance was, it'll be a bit harder from the front room.
And it's that part that we're interested in, the bit that's attached to the tower. So the best view is from your bedroom.
Yes.
I think that's all the questions I've been asked to cover with you, Mr. Talabi. I've got one final matter for you. Is there anything further about the events of the night and what you saw and heard on that night, above what you've put in your written statement or in your answers today, that you think it's important to draw to the attention of the chairman?
First and foremost, I'd like to say thank you to everyone that's supported us throughout this whole process of trying to get justice. We really appreciate it because it's hard, but yeah. As well, I'd like to speak about the fire brigade, if I can. No one should ever have to go to work and not return back to their family. No one, whether you're a fire brigade, whether you're a firefighter, whatever job you do. But at the end of the day, it'll be easier sometimes if you just say the truth, because that way people will forgive you. It'll be easier for people to forgive you. There are people that have lost family members in the tower, and firefighters have lied on them and lied about the missions that they went on. This is not fair on the families and everything they've been through. They should be putting the blame on their bosses for not giving them the right equipment to work that night, because their bosses put them in danger as well as putting us in danger. But you shouldn't lie on residents that are going through enough as it is and say you did rescue missions that you didn't do. I would like to thank Peter Herrera for opening that door, because if he didn't open that door, I probably would have gone through the window and I probably would have died. Maybe, maybe not. But at the same time, Peter Herrera made loads of mistakes that night. Peter Herrera is a human being. All he had to say was, I tried my best. I was scared. Don't lie on people. Don't lie at innocent people. Don't lie on people that have lost their family members. He didn't. A lot of the firefighters, some of their statements have made the residents even worse. All they had to do was come out, hold their hands up and say, we tried. Listen, I'll put myself in your shoes. Would I want to go into that building? No. So if you did, why don't you come up, just say, listen, we tried our best, we didn't have the right equipment. Don't lie. Because that way, even if we want to forgive you, it's hard for us to forgive you that way. If some of them had just opened up and said, listen, we couldn't do it, I think we'll be able to forgive them. But yeah, that's all I have to say. And I would like to thank all the people, like I said before, everyone that supported us, everyone, all the people, all the survivors, and hopefully we continue to stay strong together and get justice.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Talabi.
Well, Mr. Talabi, I think it's right that I should thank you for coming to give your evidence this afternoon. You had an horrendous experience, and it's obviously been quite difficult for you to come and talk about it. And we're all very grateful that you've done so, and your evidence will help us a lot.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Right, try to go with the usher. She'll look after you.
Mr. Chairman, I'll just hand over to Mr. Millett now.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, good
Yes, Mr.
afternoon. We've got some reading to do, and there are a number of statements to read into the record.
Yes.
It may be, I reckon I'll take about 45 minutes or so to do so. I don't want to rush it. It may be convenient now to take a short break for the shorthand writers if nobody else, or I can press straight on. I'm in your hands.
Well, I'm not getting a signal from my right that the break is particularly requested by the shorthand writer, so I think probably we could just keep
On we
going.
go. Very well.
Yes.
The first statement I would wish to read into the record is that of Mr. Mahmoud Al-Karad. That's under IWS quintuple 0821, and it comes with two exhibits, MAK1 and MAK2, respectively IWS quintuple 0819 and 791. Now, Mr. Al-Karad was from flat 112 on the 14th floor. He wasn't present during the fire, but he attended it while it was in progress. His statement was made on the 26th of June 2018, and it is accompanied by a signature with a statement of truth at page 12. I'm going to read particular parts of it to you, starting, if I can, at paragraph 11 on page 3. He says, the front door of flat 112 was wooden. It closed automatically. The door did not have any damage on the 14th of June 2017. It was the same front door as when we had first moved in. It was not changed during our tenancy. I think the door had 4 hinges, but I'm not sure. The door had a metal letterbox, which was easy to open. When we first moved in, the door didn't used to close by itself, but after 3 months someone came to change the mechanism of the door. It would then close by itself. There were no problems with the electricity supply, and there were no power shortages. I do not know if the electrical installations were ever checked. It could be that I was out at work or at college while they were being checked. Omar or Mohammed never mentioned to me that anyone had come to check the electrics. Now, I should just say at this point that that's a reference to his cousins, Omar and Mohammed. And Mr. Al-Karad had lived in flat 112 with Omar and Mohammed Alhaj Ali for some time. They'd known each other since childhood, and they'd moved into Grenfell Tower in September 2016. Continuing with the statement, paragraph 16, he says, there were 2 lifts which were often out of service. There was always one out of service. Sometimes both would be out of service. Even when using it, it was dangerous. The lifts made noise and touched the wall. The air inside the lift was stuffy, and it was difficult to breathe well inside. There would also be rubbish inside the lift at all times. Sometimes when the lifts were not working, I would have to walk up to the 14th floor. Usually it took 3 days to fix the lifts when they were broken. In the event of fire, I knew not to use the lift. I used the staircase once every 2 weeks. The lifts were always busy with many people waiting to use them, especially when only one lift was working. Rather than waiting, I would walk up to the 14th floor and allow the elderly and the children to use the lift. The stairwell had good lighting whenever I used them. However, the staircase wasn't clean. People smoked weed there, so sometimes there was a smell. The steps on the stairs were not even. Some were higher than the others. I used to exercise regularly in the stairwell, running up and down, so I am very much aware of its general condition. The door to the stairwell from our landing on the 14th floor was wooden, and it opened out to the stairs. The door closed automatically and would shut behind you. The stairwell had a handrail, which was very low. The stairs were not very wide, and only 2 people would be able to cross on the stairs. The flow of air in the stairs was not great. I found myself getting out of breath when exercising, not only because I was exercising, but because the stairwell was a small space with a lack of airflow. At paragraph 20 on page 5, he goes on to say, the landlord, Mr. Azab, showed us the fire exit when we first moved in. This was the only information that we received about fire safety. The information was given orally. We knew that there was only one stairwell to exit the tower. RBKC/TMO never gave us information about fire safety. I'm not aware of the London Fire Brigade carrying out home fire safety checks in the days before the fire. Before the 14th of June, if there was a fire inside the flat, I would have left the building straight away. This would be better than staying inside. It is safer to leave, and I feel like I would have control over the situation. If there was a fire somewhere else, I would probably wait for the fire brigade for instructions, and perhaps leave it if it was a major fire. I'm not sure if there was a communal fire alarm system in Grenfell Tower. I did not see any, but I know that there was a smoke alarm inside flat 112. And then he deals from paragraph 14 onwards with the evening of the 13th of June. I'll read that, I think probably to make something slightly clearer than from what I said before. I think I said before that he was a cousin. In fact, he was close friends with Omar and Mohammed, and the following passage makes that slightly clearer. I woke up at about 10 a.m. on 13th of June. I went to work at about 11:30 a.m. I was supposed to go home at 8 p.m., but my colleague and friend, Omar Al-Khatib, requested that I stay with him until the shop closed at 2 a.m. I didn't have anything to do at home, so I stayed with him. Mohammed and Omar's cousin, Asim Alhaj Ali, came to the shop at 11 p.m. to accompany us. We drank coffee, ate dessert, and talked. It was a really fun atmosphere. And then at 26, he goes on to describe his experience on the 14th itself. Yeah. And this goes on for a number of paragraphs, down to paragraph 40, but I want to read it all because its detail is important. At around 1:10 a.m., Assem received a call from Mohammed. He looked distressed during the call, and I was concerned that something terrible had happened. He came back to the table in a very rushed way, and in a panicked voice said, "There is a fire inside your building, and Mohammed and Omar are still inside." I wasn't sure what was happening. I was thinking that they may be trapped, that maybe the fire was inside our flat. I thought that it was something dangerous. I was worried about them. Assem Moaz, another friend, and I quickly left the shop and rushed to the flat. We left within a couple of minutes, and Assem drove us to Grenfell Tower. I called Mohammed while I was in the car. He was scared, panicking, and asking for help. He told me to do anything that I could do. I called the fire brigade straight away. They told me that they were aware of the fire and were already there. I think that these calls were made from either Assem or Moaz's mobile phones. There is no record of me making them from my phone, but I definitely know that I made them. While we were in the car and driving on the A40, I saw the fire at the tower. The colour of the fire was orange flames with black and grey smoke. The fire was just on one side of the building and was on around 6 floors. The fire was not on our side, but was on the side next to us. I had hope that Mohammed and Omar would be able to leave because the fire brigade were already on site and the fire was not directly on our side. We reached the Grenfell area at approximately 1:45 a.m. We could not get anywhere near the tower with the car because the area was so busy, so we drove to an area 5 minutes away from the tower. I quickly got out of the car and ran towards Grenfell Tower. I left Asim and Moaz, who were still parking. I could see the fire blazing, and as I got nearer the tower, it was very hot. The fire had got bigger and had spread since I'd first seen it when we were driving along the A40. I wanted to go inside to see the situation and help my friends and other people. I ran to the building from the Grenfell Road entrance, and I saw emergency services and around 100 people who had gathered outside the tower. I tried to go nearer the tower, but the police shouted at me to stay back. I attach as an exhibit MAK2 to this statement my telephone records for the 14th of June 2017 with Mohammed's number highlighted. I called Mohammed on his number again at 1:56 a.m. while I was standing outside the building. I told him to put his hand up, and when I did, I could see him. The fire was about 30 meters away from where he was standing. He told me that he and Omar were inside the flat and that they couldn't go outside because the hallway was filled with black smoke. He told me to speak to the police and to get help. I remember the words that he said to me in a very scared and desperate tone. "We are dying inside. In the name of Allah, help us. Ask the police to send a helicopter. Anything. We are dying." This made me very sad, worried, scared, and confused. I went to the police straight away. I told them that my flatmates were still inside the flat and needed help. I asked them for advice as to what they should do. A policeman told me to tell them to close the windows, put towels under the front door, and to stay inside. I called Mohammed back at 2 a.m. to tell him this information. He told me that the fire brigade had already come to his flat and told him and Omar to stay inside the flat. He told me that they told him that they were coming soon to help him and that he should wait. I tried to calm him down and to make him relaxed. He was panicking. I approached the police again because I was outside the police cordon, and the police were the first point of contact for bystanders. I asked them to help Mohammed and Omar. The officer took notes, asking me their floor, flat number, and the number of people inside their flat. At that time, I think only Omar and Mohammed were inside their flat. The police kept telling me to tell him not to go out of the flat, to put towels at the bottom of the doors and close all the doors. I was telling Mohammed to stay where he was. I was just passing on the information that I was getting from the police, who were getting information from the control room. I trusted them. Thinking back now, I would have told him to leave and ignore the stay put advice. Between 2 a.m. and 2:46 a.m., I called Mohammed 7 times to ask him if help had arrived. Each time he kept saying no, and I could hear that he was getting more and more scared and panicked. During one of the phone calls, I think at 2:36 a.m., he told me that he and Omar were moved to flat 113 by firefighters and that they were there with 6 other people. I thought that it was strange that they had just been moved to another flat rather than being brought out to safety. I could see that the fire was getting worse and was uncontrollable, and that the safest place for them would have been outside. I was also seeing that other residents had managed to leave the flat, so it was more than possible for my friends to leave too. The fire was just getting worse and was spreading upwards. It was on the side of the tower facing the gym. The flames were orange and yellow in colour. It spread all the way up to the building and then moved left to the side that faces Grenfell Road, which was the same side as our flat. I was afraid for Mohammed and Omar. I thought that they were going to die, and I was shocked. I was getting even more worried because the fire was spreading. I didn't know what to do. In one of the calls, Mohammed asked me where the fire was. He was scared that the fire was coming to his flat. I didn't know what to tell him because I didn't want to scare him even more. Throughout the hours I was standing outside Grenfell Tower, I could see parts of the building falling all around from all sides of the block which were on fire. The material which covered the outside of the building was burning and falling. We were standing around 40 meters away from the building. The police were pushing people further and further back. I spoke to Mohammed again at 2:55 a.m. He told me he couldn't see Omar. He was crying. I told him to shout out for Omar. He told me that he is dying. His voice was very low. He also cried, telling me not to tell his family about the fire. He told me to tell his family that he loved them and to tell his mother to forgive him for any wrongs he may have done. I had no words to say. This was the most difficult conversation of my life. I was crying inside and just broke down. I did not want to show Mohammed what I was feeling inside, so I told him to calm down and that he, God willing, would get out of the fire. After every phone call, I kept going back to telling them that my friends were still in the tower. I kept going back to the police because they were the first point of contact for people. At 3:19 a.m., I spoke to Mohammed for the last time. I told him to leave the flat and to run down the stairs. He said, "I can't leave. There is a mother and child with me. How can I leave them?" He told me that there were 8 of them before inside flat 113, but now there was only 4. He told me to tell the fire brigade to keep hosing flat 113 with water. I went to the police and told them what Mohammed had told me. They just said okay, and that they would inform the control room. 10 minutes after I'd spoken to Mohammed, I got a call from another friend, Adnan, who told me that Omar was outside. I was relieved, but also confused. I had just spoken to Mohammed and he was still inside. I asked Adnan where they were and I made my way to them. Omar was sitting next to a tree near Latimer Road Underground Station. I ran towards Omar. His face was black from the smoke and he was wearing an oxygen mask. Hashem and Adnan were with him. Omar was inside the police cordon and the police didn't let me go inside the cordon. I shouted to Omar, "Thank God you are fine." Omar looked very distressed. He was crying and was very angry. He was coughing and was finding it difficult to speak because of the smoke. He knew that Mohammed was still inside. I remember that he called Mohammed while he was outside and told him to leave and not to listen to the fire brigade. I remember him saying, "Just leave, you can do it. It isn't that difficult." I went back to the place that I'd been standing on Grenfell Road. I was trying to ask the police for help. I kept going back to them, telling them that there were people still trapped in flat 113. They told me they would send a request to the control room. Many of the people who'd gathered outside were very angry at the police and the emergency services. They did not give people any information. I recall someone shouting, "Why are you not helping people? It's been 4 hours and the fire is still blazing." The fire had spread even more and the smoke was getting thicker, but Mohammed was still not getting help. I was really worried about my friend. I kept going back to the police to put pressure on them to do something, but there was no help. They kept telling me that requests would be made to the control room. Between 4:26 and 5:05 a.m., I called Mohammed 8 times. The phone wasn't ringing. It was just going to voicemail. I thought that it was over. I lost hope that he was going to make it. I thought that he had burnt, or that the smoke made it difficult for him to breathe. At around 5 a.m., I saw Omar Alhaj Ali, Mohammed's fiancée, outside. She was crying and asked me why I hadn't told her about the fire. I tried to calm her down. Also, I was told that Omar had been taken to King's College Hospital by an ambulance because he was coughing. At this point, I could see the whole tower was on fire. I could hear the fire burning and the noise from the bits of falling building. I sat down. I was completely shocked at what was happening. I had just seen Mohammed the morning before. The hours went by so quick, I didn't know what was going on. I just froze. I put my head down, watching the fire, and hearing Mohammed on the phone being so scared made me very upset. I've never seen anything like that before. I didn't cry because I couldn't cry. I had to keep strong because his fiancée and his cousin were there. I did not want to upset them even further. I cried a month later when everything just came back to me. Until now, I still remember everything he said to me over the phone that night. I stayed outside the tower until approximately 9 a.m. Mohammed still didn't come out. His statement, the rest of his statement will stand, of course,
Yes.
in its entirety as evidence to the inquiry, Mr. Chairman. The next statement that I'd like to read into the record is the statement of Omar Alhaj Ali herself, the fiancée of Mohammed Alhaj Ali. It's dated the 3rd of June, 2018, and it's at IWS quintuple 0637. This morning, Mr. Chairman, we heard the evidence of Omar Alhaj Ali, whose brother Mohammed
Yes.
passed away in the fire. And as I say, this is the statement of his fiancée. They'd met in 2015, and they'd begun a relationship. And she explains in her statement that they had discussed marriage soon after meeting. And Mohammed was traditional in that way, as she says. She was with Mohammed until 8:30 p.m. on the night of the 13th of June, the night or the evening before the fire. She received a message from him around 12:10 a.m. when he told her that he had returned home to the tower. We could pick that up, if we can, at paragraph 12. We'll pick it up at paragraph 12. She says, paragraph 20. I was with Mohammed on the 13th of June until around 8:30 p.m. I was on the bus with him going home. I went home to make some food and break my fast. He told me that he was going to see a Syrian family with his brother Omar and his cousin to break his fast. That was the last time I saw him. I have a message on my phone from him which was sent at 9 p.m. which says that he was on his way to on his way to break fast. We were messaging back and forth after this, and we spoke on the phone as well. At 12:10 a.m. he sent me a message to say that he was now back at home. I was already in bed asleep, so I didn't read this. I was asleep through the fire, so I didn't know what was happening. My phone was on silent, so I didn't wake up when people were calling me. I woke up between 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. and saw that I'd missed calls on my phone from people. The calls were made to me at around 3 a.m. I answered a call from a woman who was with Omar at the tower. She said to me, "Don't panic, but there has been a fire. Omar is okay, but he's going to hospital, but we can't find Mohammed." She told me not to panic and said she would come and get me in her car. I waited for her to come and get me, but she called me and told me she couldn't get to my house because of the traffic and the roads being closed. I left my house in my pajamas. I just put a scarf on and left. I got on a bus, but the bus only took me a couple of stops because the road round Ladbroke Grove were closed. I got off the bus and I ran to the tower. I could see the smoke in the sky. In my mind, I was thinking, it won't be that bad. Come on, we're living in Britain. I thought to myself that it's such a huge block of flats, there's no way he didn't get out. I thought that if there was a fire at the top or at the bottom of the tower, then he would have gotten out because he's in the middle, on the 14th floor. I was picturing a fire in a flat. I didn't imagine that the fire had spread and the whole tower had been on fire. I was running, and as I got closer to the tower, I could see that there was police everywhere, and there were more and more people looking up. I wanted to get to the entrance of the tower to see if Mohammed was there. If he was still in the tower, I wanted to be there as he came out so he would see me. I saw there was a police cordon and a tape, so I couldn't get to the front of the tower. The police kept stopping me getting any closer. I went around and around the tower trying to get closer, but I couldn't get any closer because of the police. I tried for such a long time. As I was approaching the tower, I could see the smoke in the air and could smell the burning. I can't describe how it smelled, but the smoke and smell was so bad. I was so tired because I was fasting, and there was so much heat. I think that it was heat from the tower. There was ash falling next to my feet. Even though I was quite a way back from the tower, I could see bits of black on the floor. When I saw the tower for the first time, I was shocked. It was black. I didn't think it would be like that. The most I thought would be a floor was on fire. It was like a movie. It was so surreal. There were so many people there and so much media. The helicopter was in the sky above the tower. I felt like I was dreaming or I was in a movie. I was shocked. It looked like a war zone. It was crazy. There were children in their uniforms sitting on the ground. People were crying. I saw so many volunteers running around handing out water to people. I got in contact with Hashem and Mahmoud, who were both in the tower looking for Mohammed. It was difficult to find them. There were so many people and so many places blocked off. The police were everywhere, and residents were all over the floor. It was really hard to find the two of them. I eventually found them both, and I was so tired from looking for them and Mohammed. We started looking for him together. Every time we asked people around where we could find him and that he was missing, people told us to register his name in different places around the area. We went to refuge stops to write his name down on a list. We asked the police about the hospitals the residents had been taken to, but the police would not give us any information. I was crying. I was really distressed. We were running all around to see if anyone had seen him. No one was helping us. My sister and my friend came to the area to help me look for Mohammed. They told me to cover my mouth because the smoke and the smell coming from the tower was so bad, and they were concerned about me inhaling it and the damage it could do if I did. Can I just read also paragraphs 11 and 16 and 17? Paragraph 11, she says, the lifts were often out of order. Mohammed would get worried about me using them because he was worried that I might get trapped in there. He didn't think that they were safe to use. Every time I went to see him, he would come out of his flat and get into the lift, into the ground floor to meet me, and we would get in the lift together. And then at paragraph 16 and 17, she says, I don't know whether Mohammed's front door automatically closed. I think it did. I don't recall there being issues with the front door to the flat. I'd seen the workmen come to fix the entrance door to Grenfell Tower. I never heard a fire alarm go off in Mohammed's flat or in the tower itself. I don't remember seeing the fire alarms in the corridors. I don't remember if Mohammed had fire alarms in the flat itself. I don't remember there being any fires when Mohammed lived there. Where I lived, we had signs on the walls about what to do where there is a fire, and we had fire extinguishers in the building, but in Grenfell Tower, I don't remember seeing a fire extinguisher in the building or signs up with what to do in a fire. And as I say, Mr. Chairman, as with all these witness statements, the entirety of that statement will stand in the record and be taken into account by the inquiry in its deliberations. The next witness statement I'd like to read into the record is that of Francis Dean, who is a friend of Zainab Dean. His statement is IWS 1048, and it includes FD1, an exhibit which is screenshots of phone calls made. The statement of truth It was dated the 28th of August 2018 and is at page 9 of the statement, together with his signature. He had known Zainab Dean since 2015 and were close friends. They're not related. The name is coincidental. And she initially employed him to do a decorating job for her, as he explains. He describes her as his sister, although, as I say, they're not related. On the night of the 13th of June 2017, Mr. Dean had given Zainab a lift back to Grenfell Tower, and they got there around 9:30 to 10 p.m. He spent time with her and her son Jeremiah before leaving to go home for the night. Zainab then called Mr. Dean at 1:38 a.m. and had told him there was a fire in the tower, and he made a 999 call straight after that to report the incident. Can I pick it up at paragraph 20? And I'll read first of all to 25. He says at paragraph 20, I got to the tower around 2 a.m. and ran towards the building. I called Zainab back at 02:03 a.m. to identify where she was. She told me she was still inside the tower in flat 113. I called 999 again and at 2:05 a.m., but I couldn't get through as the phone kept ringing. At 02:12 a.m., a fire control operator called me back. I missed their initial call, but I called them back, and they told me that they were only speaking to people who were inside the building, and people inside should call 999. Up until 2:44 a.m., I was on the phone, on and off with Zainab, a total of 10 calls. I was running around trying to speak with the authorities to communicate where Zainab was, and therefore we had multiple exchanges of calls. During my telephone calls with her, she said that firefighters had moved her to flat 113 on the opposite side of her floor. That was Olu's flat. He escaped from the 14th floor. I told her to get out now. And then we'll actually read a little bit further on in this, if I may. Sometime around 3 a.m., I remember taking a video. I recall recording the tower for about 30 seconds before wondering why I was filming. I considered how I could try and gain access to the tower to save Zainab and Jeremiah. I remember hearing a man trying to get to someone on the 22nd or 23rd floor. Standing at the cordon, I was shouting to the police to tell them she's in floor 14, flat 113. The police confirmed the flat number and asked me what floor. I replied that we've got a young child in there and they're suffocating. She informed me that Jeremiah had collapsed, and I told her to get some wet blankets to cover them around him and to cover herself. I told her to run, but she said that the smoke was too much. I don't know why they told her to stay inside the flat. And then at paragraph 32, he says, at around 3:17 a.m., I called my duty manager to tell him that I'm not going to come into work tomorrow. At the same time, I was running to try to gain access into the building to rescue Zainab and Jeremiah. I ran round the back of the building as from when I was doing the painting and decorating of Zainab's flat. I recall there's another entrance on the other side of the law centre. I jumped over fences of other flats and a few gates, and I managed to get to the stairs on the outside of the building, which is the top entrance to the tower. At that point, I looked up, and the fire seemed that it was at its peak. You could feel the heat. Something flew out over me. I think it was a body. Things were just flying out. I could hear screams, and I could hear gasping for air. They were shouting, "Help, help!" The kids were screaming. The noise haunts me. I could hear the noise of the helicopters and see the smoke above me. I was screaming. I was on the phone to Zainab. She was crying. She was screaming and she was helpless. I told her that I was coming to get her. I came down and tried to enter, but I was refused entry. The firefighters were asking me to get away due to falling debris. And he describes further attempts at entrance into the building. And then at 39, he starts the description of the circumstances surrounding his call with Zainab, where Zainab speaks to the firefighter. I was near the basement getting frustrated and kicking around the bin and some bottles, and I noticed a fireman sitting on the floor to my right, and they were marking on a whiteboard. They were exhausted and they couldn't fight it. I told them she was on the 14th floor in flat 113. I gave the firefighter my phone and I asked him to speak to Zainab. I said, "It's my girl, or my baby, and she's trapped up there on the 14th floor." I told them that they have been moved to flat 113. I thought that they were going to get her out, and that is why they prevented me from entering the tower. The fireman, I think his name was Chris Batcheldor, said to Zainab, lay down low, lay down flat, we're coming to get you. So I expected that. He spoke to her for over an hour. I thought they were going to rescue her. But the fire was getting bigger and bigger. You could see the fire growing, the red flames, the yellow flames. I was waiting for people to come out of the building whilst the firefighter was focused on Zainab. I could hear him telling her to stay low, and you could hear every now and then a boom from the building. I didn't see more than about 5 to 10 people come out of the building since he had my phone. She never came out of the flat, and when the fire gave me back my phone, it was daylight. When he gave me the phone back, he told me the phone had died, so I ended the call, as when I put it to my ear, the phone went silent. I then called her back, and the phone went to voicemail. This was some time after 5 a.m. I just thought the phone had died. I was not 100% sure that she had died, but I suspected from the call that she did not make it. There was still some hope in me that she was still alive. I recall leaning against the fence, and he told me to walk with him to the fire rescue van. I did suspect something had happened. The fireman asked me to write down my name and phone number and Zainab's and Jeremiah's name on a piece of paper. Mr. Chairman, that is all I think I need to read from Mr. Dean's statement. His statement will be taken into account in its entirety in the usual way. I'm reminded from behind me that there are also 2 further exhibits, FD2 and FD3, which I shall just mention into the record. IWS quadruple 1004 and 1005. Those are 2 videos which are exhibited to his statements.
Right, thank you.
The next witness statement that I am going to read is that of Mr. Timothy Murphy. He is a relative of Dennis Murphy. The reference to that statement is IWS quadruple 01049. It's dated and signed on the 18th of August 2018. The statement of truth and signature are on page 3. And he is Mr. Murphy's brother, as he explains in paragraph 2. He'd had a number of telephone calls with his brother in the early hours of the 14th of June 2017, after his wife had woken him up because she'd seen some missed calls and voicemail notifications on her telephone. And throughout the night, Timothy Murphy and other family members attempted to find out what was going on with Dennis, and some members attended Grenfell itself to try to help him. Just picking it up, if I can, at paragraphs 4 to 6, he says, I woke up immediately, listened to the voicemail message, and straight away phoned Dennis. By this time, I think it was around 1:36 a.m. Dennis answered immediately. I could hear in his voice that he was distressed and in a state of panic. He told me that the flats were on fire. Initially, I thought the fire was in Dennis's flat, and one of the first things I said to him was, Den, get to the window and get some air. I was concerned for Dennis's physical health, as he had emphysema. Den said to me that he could not go to the window, as that was where all the smoke was piling in from. I then told him to get out of the flat. I have a memory of him going to the door, as I heard him opening it, but as quickly as I heard it open, I heard him shut it. He then said to me that it was pitch black out in the lobby, and that smoke was coming into the flat. I could hear the alarm ringing throughout my call with Den. Den was coughing. I was worried about him. I told him to go into the bathroom, get towels, wet them, and put them round the door, and make a tent for himself with the wet towels. I then told him that I was going to call the emergency services, 999, and I said to him not to use his phone or answer it until I phoned him back, as I would phone him again once I'd spoken with the 999 emergency services. I then called 999 and told them about the fire and gave details about Dennis to them. I made the 999 call at around 1:46 a.m. I remember telling them that Dennis had breathing problems. I immediately phoned Dennis after this call to let him know that help was on the way. I reassured him. At that time, I was not really sure of the severity of the fire, or indeed whether it was in Dennis's flat or in the entire block. And like all the others, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Murphy's statement will stand as evidence in its entirety to the inquiry and will be taken into account. The next statement I would wish to read into the record is the statement of Anne Murphy. She is the sister of Dennis and Timothy Murphy. And she was awoken at about 1:45 on the 13th of June by family members telling her that there had been a fire at Dennis's building. And she went to Grenfell Tower with her partner and her nephew, Peter Murphy, who's also given a statement, which I shall also read into the record shortly, and Dennis's former partner, Tracy. The statement itself is under IWS quadruple 01017, dated the 1st of July 2018, and there's a statement of truth in paragraph 1 and a signature on page 6. And there's also a statement of truth on page 6 as well. At paragraph 10, she picks up the story when they were in the car. I'll just read 3 paragraphs, 10 to 12. As soon as we were all in the car, I guess it was around 2:30 a.m. by this time, I called Dennis's mobile phone. As soon as he answered the phone, I could hear he was struggling with his breathing. Dennis lived with emphysema, so he struggled with breathing anyway. I said to him, "It's me, are you okay?" He said, "No, sis, I'm not. I'm trapped and I cannot breathe." I told him to stay calm, to cover his face with something wet and to lie on the floor, as there was more oxygen there, and I told him we were on our way to him. I could hear a woman's voice in the background shouting that an ambulance was needed. I then asked him where he was, and he said that he was in a neighbour's flat. I was distressed at this point and handed the phone to Peter to speak to his dad. Peter was very upset and said to his dad that we were on our way to him and that he was to listen to what I had told him to do. We got there at 3 a.m. and it was complete pandemonium. As soon as I saw the building, I was utterly and totally horrified, and my heart sank deep inside of me. We could not get near the tower block itself, and we had to park by Avondale Park. Peter jumped out of the car and ran off. I got out of the car, and as I started to walk towards the tower, I saw a policeman, and I said to him, "My brother is in there on the 14th floor. Please can you find out if they've got him out?" I was really upset, and the policeman phoned through to someone and then said to us, "There's a glimmer of hope. The firemen have reached the 20th floor. These firemen are not assigned to your brother's floor, but they reached the 20th, so there is hope that they reached the 14th floor and got him out." I remember getting very upset and distressed at the same time I overheard on the officer's radio that they were using the leisure centre as a morgue, so I knew then that some people had died. We continued walking towards the tower, and we then reached the cordon. People were everywhere. The whole scene was crazy. People were crying, some screaming, some silent. I could see people in the windows of the tower block. We overheard people saying that people had jumped from the burning tower. Debris was coming down from the building. The fire was raging very high up the building. The fire was more on the right-hand side from where we were standing. It was like somebody had put a flame to a tissue, and the fire was rising very quickly. I could see that the fire had reached Dennis's flat. The whole tower block was going up like a tinderbox. A firefighter actually asked my partner Brian to check in his pocket to see if he had a bunch of keys in there, as he couldn't check himself because he was carrying equipment. Brian put his hand in the firefighter's pocket and told him there was a bunch of keys. The firefighter asked him to leave them in his pocket. We were so distressed, I then got worried about where were Peter and his mum Tracy, who'd gone to look for him after he'd jumped out of the car when we arrived. Tracy, apart from being Dennis's ex-wife, she's also my close friend and remained a close friend of Dennis's. My partner Brian then phoned them to see where they were, and we agreed to meet them back where we'd parked the car. And like the other statements, Mr. Chairman, Anne Murphy's statement will also stand in the record and be taken into account in its entirety.
Good. Thank you.
The final statement I would wish to read into the record this afternoon is that of Mr. Peter Murphy. He is Dennis's son. And his statement is under the reference IWS quintuple 0675. It was signed on the 25th of May 2018, and on page 6 is a signature and a statement of truth. Peter Murphy was the only son of Dennis Murphy. And as you know, Dennis had lived in flat 111 since the 1990s, and growing up, Peter Murphy had spent weekends living with his father at that address and continued to visit his father regularly up until June 2017. It's also right to say that Dennis Murphy's mother, Peter's grandmother, Dennis's mother, Peter's grandmother, also lived locally to the tower. And I just want to pick it up, if I can, at paragraphs 7 and 8, first of all. And 7, I'll just identify. It expresses Mr. Murphy's frustrations with the refurb. And then at 8, on page 3, at the top of the page, he said, he had arthritis, and more often than not during the works to Grenfell, only one lift would be working, making it very difficult for people like him to get in and out of the building. When the works were completed, he would have to come out of the building via the walkway level rather than the street level. He did not like the new entrance system that you had to use to access the building. You only had 10 seconds to get through 2 doors before you got to the lifts, otherwise you were trapped until someone came. When my nan would come to Grenfell to visit Dad, he would always come down to meet her because she would not have been able to get into the building and to the lifts within the 10 seconds. And then at paragraph 12, just a point on the doors, he says, my dad's flat was a 1-bedroom flat. His front door was painted blue with a knocker. It looked like a wooden door, but once you opened the door, you could see it had a PVC interior. He did not always have that door. Before, it used to be a plain, solid fire door. And then at paragraphs 14 to 17, he gives his account of his recollection, of the main part of his recollection of the night. I was woken up by my mum at around 2 a.m. She said my Aunt Anne had called her and said there was a fire in my dad's flat and we needed to go over. So I got up and got ready. Mum said Uncle Tim, my dad's brother, had called Aunt Anne to tell her that he had spoken to Dad, who told him there was a fire in the tower and it was serious. My Aunt Anne and her partner, my Uncle Brian, came to our house in their car, and then Mum and I joined them in their car and drove over to Grenfell. As we were driving over to the tower, my aunt rang my dad. I think it was about 2:30 a.m., but cannot really be sure of the time. I could tell by her voice that my dad was not well. My aunt was telling him to put a wet flannel over his face. She also asked him where he was. He said he was in a neighbour's flat. Dad was in a panicky state when she passed the phone to me. I remember him saying to me, Boise, I can't breathe. I'm stuck. I cannot get out. I do not know what to do. I do not know what to do. Boise was my dad's pet name for me. He called me that for as long as I can remember. I told him to do as Aunt Anne had asked him, put a wet flannel over your face. I was really upset at this point. I could hear him coughing and people screaming and someone saying we need an ambulance. I now believe it was Zainab Dean saying I need an ambulance. This was the very first time, and indeed the last time, that I heard my dad so scared. I said to him, Dad, we're coming to get you right now. Please put the flannel on your face to help your breathing. That was my last conversation with my dad, although I did not think at the time it was to be my last conversation. When I composed myself, I tried phoning him again. His phone just kept ringing. Ringing out. He did not pick up. We got to the tower at around 3 a.m. We turned down Wilsham Street. We saw the tower on fire. I jumped out of the car. The fire was more pronounced on the right side of the tower. I ran to where the cordon was. There were a number of fire engines already there at that stage, and they were putting up equipment. The firefighters were walking to the tower as the road was narrow and all backed up, so one had to walk up the road to get to the tower. The scene was chaotic. There were lots of people around, some on their phones, talking and videoing, some just stood watching. There were people screaming, and I remember a buzz of what I would think was a helicopter above us. There was stuff floating off the tower and landing on cars. The smell was awful. My eyes were stinging from the heat. There were sirens blasting out, flashing lights. The heat was immense. At the cordon, there were 3 or 4 police officers at the front. I had to wait my turn to speak with one of them. I told them that my dad was on the 14th floor. I did not have the flat number, but he was in a neighbour's flat on that floor and was struggling to breathe. The police officer told me that they, I presume he meant the firefighters, that they'd got to the 20th floor and that people were being brought down, were going up by ambulance to Clarendon Road, and he told me to take myself down there, as my dad may be there. I started to walk to Clarendon Road. At this time, my mum had found me. With my mum, I then spoke to another officer asking him about my dad, telling him what floor he lived on and where he was. The officer said he was going to find out for me, speak with the doctor, but he did not get back to me. There was no order amongst the emergency services. Nobody seemed to be in control. And then you'll continue to read on about the further calls and what happened afterwards. And again, Mr. Chairman, that statement, the statement of Peter Murphy, Dennis's son, will stand in its entirety as evidence in the record for the inquiry to take into account in full. There were originally scheduled 2 further statements to read this afternoon, that for the Al-Assads, Zora and Ahmed Al-Assad. I've been asked by their RLRs not to read those into the record today. I will not do so, but I hope to be able to do so in due course.
So that concludes the statements that are to be read today.
It does.
Well, at that point, I think it right that I should record my thanks, and indeed the thanks of all those concerned, to all those people who've taken the time and trouble to make statements. I do want to assure them that the evidence is very valuable, and it will form part of the inquiry's record, and it will be treated just as much as evidence as the evidence of those who've been called to give their testimony in person. So thank you very much, those of you who made these statements, which we've now heard read out.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. That concludes the inquiry's business for the day.
Right.
We will start again tomorrow morning with our next oral witness.
Good. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Millett. We'll break now and resume at 10 o'clock tomorrow. Good. Thank you very much. 10 o'clock tomorrow, please.